So we're going to change the oil on this transmission, 99 Chevy Blazer, S10 Chevy. Need a 15 millimeter to take those bolts off the skid plate. This is a deep pan oil filter for your 4x4. Make sure you get that if you have a 4x4. That's a fully synthetic ATF. That's our gasket warming up by the engine. I use my screwdriver to pop this off, and this pops out pretty easily. Don't break it. Plastic tab, pop that in a little, don't break it. And then you can shove it through the hole. Feed the rest of the cable through while you gently drag the cable and tuck it up somewhere out of the way, like we're doing right here. I like to get it completely out of the way that doesn't flop into the oil. And those are 13 millimeter. Those are 10 millimeter. This is a deep socket. This one won't work as well everywhere. You can see at the back. We mark where this goes so we don't lose track of where the 10 millimeters are. That'll help you later. Clearance is pretty tight in here. You can see I use a 1/4 inch adapter to get around that with a shallow 13. I'm using this impact. And get yourself a nice oil catch so you don't get splashed in the face, and leave a bolt in there to let it hang while you get the bulk of the oil out. And it looks pretty clean. That's the oil filter in there. Let it drip for a while. But it'll pretty much drip all day, so when you feel ready to go, slide that out of there, put a piece of cardboard or whatever you're going to do. That's the deep oil filter. They always give you the wrong one, so make sure you get that if you have a 4x4. This is the valve body you're looking at. We just rebuilt this not too long ago. This is the older gasket. Doesn't look bad, but if you look closely, you can see that it's getting brittle. And some spots you'll notice a little bit of cracking developing. So change that every time. Otherwise you'll be scraping it off. It's the old oil. Doesn't look too bad. Not that old. Most people don't change their transmission fluid, but you'd be surprised. Look for any metal flakes, debris. This actually looks more like gasket material. Try to get that all out. Clean it up real good. If you have any extra gasket on there, scrape it off. Don't gouge it. Make sure you get a nice relief on the pan, showing that you can get a nice seal. This is a magnet. We'll wipe that off and get it all cleaned up. I filed this down a bit for clearance issues on the cross member. You'll see what I mean later on. But be careful you don't get metal shavings inside. So this is our new gasket. This is how it goes. Just line it up. Here's that cross member with the pan installed. It does get a little hung up back there, but I noticed that if you can adjust your cross member bolts, it'll open up a little more space for the pan to get in there. Maybe you got tightened down too close, whatever, but we got it on. We get a few bolts started to keep it in place. This is where you access the bolts for that cross member. And you can slide that thing a little bit further out the way. You can see the bolts on that. So when you're getting these other bolts started, you want to make sure that gasket's not going to get stuck on the threads. Always go by hand, wiggle a little bit, make sure you get them out of the way, and always start them by hand in case it's getting stuck in there. You don't want to get them in the bolt holes. Takes a little extra time, but then you make sure you do a good job. You don't got to do it twice. Now we go around, we just seat them up. We're not going to make them too tight. We go in a cross pattern. Once they're all seated, we go around, double check they're all coming down equally. Once they're fairly tight, then you can come back for your final round, torque them off. Guys will use their impact on these, but it's aluminum thread, so if you over tighten it, you're going to have a strip bolt. I prefer to do these by hand. I get a good feel for them. Look up the torque specs for yours. Use a torque wrench if necessary. I got a pretty good feel for it, so I use a small wrench and I can keep from over tightening them. Feel along the edge, make sure you don't miss one. We'll go ahead and get this cable pulled through. Make sure you gently feed that boot. You don't scuff it up coming through the ring. Just gently work them in. Take your time. It's getting hung up. You don't need to pull too hard on it. Once you're basically in there, you're going to line up the plastic tabs on that black connector to go in the openings, and it should just pop right in. So set them all up and hear a little click. Double check, look seated. Give it a little wiggle test, and then move on to the front. Doing this with one hand for y'all. So this guy just pops on. Get it set. Feel you're on good. And get a good grip. Pop the two together. Wiggle, make sure it doesn't come off. Good. Now we'll take this retaining clip. Comes up between the two slots there. Make sure you're in the slots. Line them up, give a nice click. You hear that sound, you know you're good. That's how it should look. Now top them off with some fluid. Get yourself a long funnel. Take your time, don't spill. Got these guys making trouble. Alright. Put in your dipstick. Fire them up, check your fluids. Good to go.